Most people start here thinking about the product they're going to build, but I hope to show you that without speaking to customers and users, it's actually impossible to sit in a room and design a product from beginning to end and have it work in the real world. So the goal today, even though we are going to talk about products, is really to reflect on, if we're going to build products people love, actually what people love is the key part, and we need to shape our product to be that, not we're going to send a product out and everyone's going to love it. Very slight differences in thinking, but super important. So with all of these sessions, we start with the why. Why is it so important to focus on product? So according to Sam Altman, who is the president of Y Combinator, which is probably the best accelerator program in the world, the only secret to success is having a great product. And it's the only thing that all great companies have in common. Think of all the big companies you like. They do everything on a scale. Hiring, their marketing, how much they put into budget on different things, who they look for, all of these things are different. But there's no product that you use daily that sucks. They're all really, really good. The reason Gmail, Google Drive, Facebook, they're all exceptional products regardless of any other things. So it must be the one thing that binds them together. And actually, many people think that growth is kind of, they'll say growth hacks, or they'll do like a big PR stunt. And it's not sustainable. The only sustainable growth mechanism is having a product so good that people tell other people about it and continue to use it. So a big focus throughout your whole startup journey, but especially the first 2 years, is on product and making sure that it's as good as it can be, that it's reflective of what people want. And ultimately, even if you can grow without a great product in the short term, you won't be able to grow without a great product in the long term. So it's really worth spending time and getting this right. So the common strategy, and believe me, we've tried this one a bunch of times, a bit of a Hail Mary strategy. We'll make elaborate plans for a product, we'll hire a team of engineers to develop it, and find after 2 years we've spent $2 million to develop something that nobody wants. This is the most common software development plan. It was very common in the bubble when software was seen as scary and we needed to have elaborate plans to mitigate all potential failures. But ultimately, it's the exact wrong way to develop software. You're very stuck to one plan, and once you've began halfway along these elaborate plans, it's very hard to change it. You've already raised money to fulfill it, you've already got your people hired in place, and you're essentially betting it all that what you end up with is what people want. The safer way is about iteration. So it's being flexible enough in our approach that we can continuously change on the fly what our product's going to do and how it's going to help people. Again, betting that you're going to get it right first time is just not a good bet. But if you say to someone, all right, well, we've got a full team of 12 months and we can do a few different experiments, or we can get a lot of different customer data in, how well can it be? How good can it be at the end? So what we're looking to do, even from this week, is create a product improvement cycle that sits in the middle of each of your companies. And it's all about going through that cycle as fast as possible and gathering as much data to understand what the product should be. During both phases, if you're successful at this investment gate, this improvement cycle will run the project. It'll be the weeks where you're talking to your team about what needs to be built based on feedback. We will build it, we will take it back out, we will get more feedback, and we will continue to build it. Only once we're confident that we have a great product will we move into phase 2, which is building a great company. So until we've got a great product, this is the one job that you guys have, is to get feedback and build a great product. The faster you do this, the faster you'll be able to go through the investment gates, the faster you'll be able to get to the cool stuff, which is hiring, which is building a cool company. This is the very famous feedback loop. People can add and subtract steps, but fundamentally, we build something, a hypothesis, a survey, a prototype, a product. We measure the results against what we think the delivered value are. We learn new insights, and we go round. And honestly, the startup that you might be competing against anywhere in the world that moves through this loop the quickest, most consistently, is very likely to succeed. Even if someone comes out with a better build in version 1, but if you can move through this once every 2 weeks and really develop the learning and insights, you will beat that company eventually. So it's really important to know how to move it through. And even without a product, you guys can start moving through this loop now. You build a set of questions that you want to ask your customer, you measure results, you get new insights, you build a better set of questions. You build a prototype, you draw something down. So you want to get in this loop as quickly as possible. And if we can go through this loop a few times before investment, not only will we have lots of data to share with the investors, they'll be able to see that we're already in this mindset. We're always looking to take out our latest assumptions and build through. So if going through the loop is key to success, then going through it quickly is the way to gain a competitive advantage against other startups. So just some advice for when you do get to the point where we can start building out a product and we can start coming up with our ideas. The number one thing is to keep it simple. So you should only have a couple of variables where you think you're going to outperform the competition at the beginning. So making sure that there's a small piece of product to test that part will not only ensure that we go through the loop quicker, but it will make sure that the feedback is more definitive. We know what we know. The biggest problem with that plan, the Hail Mary strategy, is that the feedback loop is 2 years long. We're building for 2 years, then we're measuring for 6 months, and only then do we learn. The goal is to keep it as small as possible so that we can get through the loop quicker. So remember how we spoke last week about raising our riskiest assumptions, finding the marshmallow? My suggestion would be to try as quickly as possible to do a test that helps validate the riskiest assumptions in the business, and you can begin that today. The second thing is to get very close to your user/customer. One of the recommendations is to go sit in their office if you can, physically watch them using product and prototypes and software. Don't just let it be, any space between you and them, whether it's actual physical space or non-physical space, so you're only doing it via emails, or you're not really getting to know them, you're just trying to extract what you need. This is all stuff that's actually going to slow down the feedback loop in the long run. If you can watch people use it physically, then you'll know exactly what they value. The third thing is to not just value what they say. If you ask people, we've been through this, if you ask people, well, here's 4 benefits, do you like my app? They will all say yes. However, if you watch them, and you watch them struggle on the product, or you tell they don't really get what they're doing in front of them, that's actually much more valuable than what they say, and it's another really important reason to be there physically with people as they use early tests. And this is why we have 2 phases of building product and building company. I want your whole obsession to be getting to know customers and building the product until we're done, we've dominated that part, and then we move into company building. And that's the point where you can start hiring people to speak to users, you can hire salesmen to go out, because you no longer need to be in that feedback loop as exclusively. But for now, the feedback loop is everything. What we're gonna end up building is, and I'm sure everyone's heard this term, although even in our company, we still debate on its exact meaning, Andy's smiling, minimum viable product. Now, founders think this means, what can I get away with when I ask what I'm going to get built? And what it should actually mean is, what is the smallest thing we can build that delivers customer value? So to do that, obviously we need to understand customer value, which is where all the discussions with users comes now. It needs to be small enough that we can deliver it quickly and get our feedback very, very fast. And it needs to deliver customer value in the key aspect of the business. So if what we're trying to do is reduce cost by 10 times, then the MVP should probably reduce cost by 10 times and capture that back. As a bonus, if you can get paid for this viable product, then you really have validated that customer value has been delivered and that you've exchanged. But this doesn't always have to be cash. It can be attention, it can be referrals, it can be something. But what you're looking for is some interaction with your MVP that gives you learning back into what you should exploit further.
So, sorry.
Go, yeah, please, as we go.
So with you saying at the validate stage, if we can show that customers are giving us feedback, not money, would you then as Nova validate the business just on customer feedback?
Yes, is the short answer. Each business, of course, has different metrics to what's important to it. So if you're an attention-based business, then what we'd like to see is, look, they've spent X amount of hours per week on our product. If you are a revenue-generating business and it's kind of a one-off trade for services, then revenue's the best thing. Now, if you've got letters of intent from other businesses or things like this that show an early commitment, then that's great as well. Exactly. If you're a product that's fueled on growth and you want to capture a large part of quite a big market, then what you may be able to say is, look, every person that signed up has added 4 of their friends. So you're trying to identify the key part of your business, whether it's the currency you want or the value you deliver, and your MVP is designed to show an early stage version of that working.
And we're going to set some objectives and key results. If you look into them, Google use them.
Right.
Quite simple, but actually quite difficult to get your head around when you start to apply them. But fundamentally, you set an objective. I want to do X, and then you go, what are the key things that I'm going to measure that knows I'm doing that?
Okay.
It stops you measuring kind of like, number of people visiting my website.
Stuff that's not needed.
Is that relevant?
No.
And you go, well, what's my objective? My objective is to get 55 people downloading my app. Right, well, my key result is then number of downloads from the App Store, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So you set yourself some very clear key results. Then if you do any activity around it, you should be doing activity around those key results.
Not
Anything
lost.
else. Not like amount of hours I get on TV.
Yeah.
Is that relevant? No. It seems great, but it's not relevant to what you need to do.
Right, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing about
Go on.
about minimum viable products, and I've seen this in the digital world, as in digital agencies as well as the startup world. If you put too much live in one go and then you get feedback, the next question is, what impacted it? We seem to have had a negative impact, we don't know, because we put 5 things out there.
Too much.
So you end up kind of stripping things out. Well, that's time wasting now. You're stripping things out and testing them. It would have been easier to do quick tests, prove, disprove, and keep adding this functionality every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You might think, oh, they all think it's shit if it's not fully designed up. Does it make any difference in terms of getting your feedback loop? That will come later.
Yeah, because they'll be asking, well, you could do this, and you're kind of getting customer feedback directly then.
Yeah.
This is what your site needs, and if you get 1,000 people say the same thing, you know which direction you're going in.
Yeah, you want some, if they say, well, I didn't know how to use that bit, it didn't make sense to me, that's really useful. Particularly quite a few do that. If they give, if you start going, if it was blue and green, would it be any better? You're kind of leading them.
Yeah.
It's not relevant at that moment. So minimum viable product should be small iterations, get them out there. The minimum bit you need to build to test your assumption or your riskiest assumption at that point. If you start trying to throw too much into it, if things go wrong, you don't know what went wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not, it's a mechanism for which to receive learnings and feedback faster. And what we're not expecting at the end of this year is to potentially have, we've got the full singing and dancing product, it does everything we wanted, it's got really complex algorithms behind it. What we're looking for is how many customers were able to interact with our MVP, what were the key learnings, what do we know we need to exploit later. And the best thing you guys can do is always try and think, what's the smallest thing I can test next that will deliver the most results to our startup, that will give us indication to where we should be looking next. What it's not,
I was going to say, but one of our current startups has an email. It's not going to remain an email, he sends an email out every week. And he knows from that email how many people interact with it, because he's got a bit of analytics on it, how many more people subscribe, how many people, he's starting to use little codes, so as people go to the events that he knows. So he can measure everything before he builds a complicated thing. And he can prove growth. He says, if I do this, I get more people on my mailing list. It's simple. He's finding it really effective, and he's doing little learnings in there. He doesn't have to wait for a product team to do a 2-week cycle.
Right.
He can do it himself.
Just doing it.
And SurveyMonkey or whatever he's using, and just go bang. Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah.
exactly. And you can see how if you had 2 founders, one with an email list that had grown it and had a bunch of different data about what worked and what didn't, and they asked for money to build a platform, versus someone who just asked for money to build a platform, even if they were both the same idea, the investor's only going to go for one of them, and it's because he's built the data to support the grand plans later. What an MVP is not designed to do is it's not designed to compete with the big boys from day one. So if you were launching a new social media platform, and if you think release 1 is going to take down Facebook, then we need to rethink our plans. However, if we think we've got an advantage that we can exploit over Facebook, and the MVP demonstrates that in action, then hey, people might give you that 2 million quid to actually take it on. So that's the key goal of what we're trying to do here, is still understand what should be in the large scaled up version of the product that's going to be taking a couple of years to build. And what we're trying to do is build a little bit of data set here and there to show that. And it shouldn't be built and forgotten. So I know everyone's got an idea of the end point of their product and they want to get there as quickly as possible, but all great software companies have very large teams continuously focused on improving. Not only is it a great way to get new users in, I think it's just absolutely required at this point. In 2018, all products have got to be great and they've always got to be improving. So try and take your mind away from a fixed end point of product, because it doesn't exist. You won't even know when you've transitioned from MVP into full product if you've been iterating properly enough. It will just kind of happen. Another thing about MVPs is that if you're not embarrassed by your first release, then you've left it too late. And actually, people think that it's embarrassing to have customers look at a really early, unbranded, quite ugly version. But I see it as a positive. If customers are willing to engage with an ugly, unbranded, clunky version, then they must really see the value in this. And once we release an improved version, then surely our numbers will go up. So actually, we're looking for clunky, inefficient products that excite people, because that's low-hanging fruit. Once we've got that, and we just need to improve it, we need to make it styled up, we need to make it look a bit better, they're the easy improvements. If we've got a really slick, unuseful product, it's much harder to work out how to make that product useful. Any more questions on MVPs while we're on it? Yeah. Yes, John?
What about the likes of medical devices, things like that, where you're going to have a large phase between having nothing and having an MVP?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously much more difficult when you're going into A, clinical settings, and B, the feedback loop is longer. So for me, it's about understanding what value we're going to deliver and checking in with the right people that A, does this sound plausible? And B, I think it's more important than ever to have proper trials lined up for certain releases. So I think it's all about having proper alphas and betas within a very specific control group, so that they know what we're releasing is only going to do a small test. We're probably there physically with them as well. It's probably much longer before it can go out into the wild and start serving people. But it still, I think, follows the same mechanisms of small build, feedback, and ensuring the value's there before we go into full-scale production.
So would you class like a proof of concept piece of work that would show the principle?
Yes.
Exactly. So let's take, if we were building a medical device to monitor fluid balance, let's say, if that was 50% more accurate than people using it on pencil, that would be a great test that will, I imagine, get investors very excited for the next phase. So it might not have gone all the way into a live customer environment, but it's done the appropriate tests to show that we can deliver a magnitude of difference.
Yeah. What we've been trying to do as well, I know, as long as it's not medical as in, it's putting things in you or taking things out of that kind of medical, we try and work with hospitals or trusts to see if they will run it alongside what they currently have.
Yeah.
So do you mind running this alongside? So we know whatever you're currently doing, and this is just for a trial period to see whether or not we can match you or beat what's going on.
Yeah.
If they allow us to do that, it's not a medical trial.
Yeah.
It's definitely not. But what it does allow us to do is to say to the funding people, look, we've done this, but this data, we've proven this in this situation, it's 20% more accurate than this.
Yeah.
So now you give us a big chunk of cash to be able to do something a bit more. Normally, people get scared and go, I want to see the medical trial first. But we can't, can we? We're around.
Yeah.
So we're trying to at least see what we're like against whatever's out there. It's a bigger feedback loop, basically, for what you're talking about.
Okay.
One thing that the investors might ask you, and it's a good question that you should think about, is if you were put in the room with your perfect customer, I asked this to you yesterday, Nick, what would be the 3 killer questions you had up your sleeve? So if someone said, right, your customer's in the room, 1 minute, go, what 3 questions would you ask? What do you need to learn? And the MVP should reflect that as well. There should be 3 burning questions on your mind. And in our mentor sessions, I think we will ask this to you guys, because we want to understand what you're trying to measure as well, because that will continue on into the MVP. Generally, for me, it's, can we deliver the value? Can we replace the existing alternatives? Can we get people to pay? Are kind of the basics, but there might be specific ones just for you guys. So, a couple other things to think about your product. Number 1 is that all interactions with your company are part of the product. So it's not just the software, it's not just the app, it's not just the hardware, it's the customer support, it's the sales, it's the copy on the ads, it's the email, all of it in the customer's mind is part of your company interaction. So it all needs to be the same, it all needs to be high quality. And the second thing is that we hire products to do jobs for us. So we don't just go out and find things. We have got a set of jobs that we're always trying to accomplish, and we will generally hire a product that can do it better than we can ourselves. And that's really key to understand how to build a useful product. If we go back to last week, and our number 1 cause of failure is still building something nobody wants, this is one of the ways we ensure we're building something useful, is to understand what jobs people are trying to accomplish. So we've got, where's our Rishi? Can you press the video button, please? So we've got a really good video to explain what jobs to be done is, so about 4 minutes.
Hi, my name's Clay Christensen. I'm a professor at the Harvard Business School. I brought with me a set of puzzles, all related to innovation. We decided that the way we teach marketing is at the core of what makes motivation difficult to achieve. The most helpful way we've thought of it so far is that we actually hire products to do things for us. And understanding what job we have to do in our lives for which we would hire a product is really the key to cracking this problem of motivating customers to buy what we're offering. So I wanted just to tell you a story about a project we did for one of the big fast food restaurants. They were trying to goose up the sales of their milkshakes. They had just studied this problem up the gazoo. They brought in customers who fit the profile of the quintessential milkshake consumer. And they'd give them samples and ask, could you tell us how we can improve our milkshakes so you'd buy more of them? Do you want it chocolatey or cheaper, chunky or chewier? They get very clear feedback. They would then improve the milkshake on those dimensions, and it had no impact on sales or profits whatsoever. So one of our colleagues went in with a different question on his mind, and that was, I wonder what job arises in people's lives that cause them to come to this restaurant to hire a milkshake. So we stood in a restaurant for 18 hours one day and just took very careful data. What time did they buy these milkshakes? What were they wearing? Were they alone? Did they buy other food with it? Did they eat it in the restaurant or drive off with it? It turned out that nearly half of the milkshakes were sold before 8 o'clock in the morning. The people who bought them were always alone. It was the only thing they bought, and they all got in the car and drove off with it. So to figure out what job they were trying to hire it to do, we came back the next day and stood outside the restaurant so we could confront these folks as they left, milkshake in hand. And in language that they could understand, we essentially asked, excuse me please, but I got to sort this puzzle out. What job were you trying to do for yourself that caused you to come here and hire that milkshake? And they'd struggle to answer, so we'd then help them by asking other questions like, well, think about the last time you were in the same situation, needing to get the same job done, but you didn't come here to hire a milkshake. What did you hire? And then as we put all of their answers together, it became clear that they all had the same job to do in the morning, and that is they had a long and boring drive to work. And they just needed something to do while they drove to keep the commute interesting. One hand had to be on the wheel, but somebody had given them another hand and there wasn't anything in it. And they just needed something to do while they drove. They weren't hungry yet, but they knew they'd be hungry by 10 o'clock, so they also wanted something that would just pull down there and stay for their morning. Good question. What do I hire when I do this job? You know, I've never framed the question that way before, but last Friday I hired a banana to do the job. Take my word for it, never hire bananas. They're gone in 3 minutes, you're hungry by 7:30. If you promise not to tell my wife, I probably hire donuts twice a week, but they don't do it well either. They're gone fast, they crumb all over my clothes, they get my fingers gooey. Sometimes I hire bagels, but as you know, they're so dry and tasteless. Then I have to steer the car with my knees while I'm putting jam on them, and then if the phone rings, we got a crisis. I remember I hired a Snickers bar once, but I felt so guilty I've never hired Snickers again. Let me tell you, when I come here and hire this milkshake, it is so viscous that it easily takes me 20 minutes to suck it up that thin little straw. Who cares what the ingredients are? I don't. All I know is I'm full all morning and it fits right here in my cup holder. Well, it turns out that the milkshake does the job better than any of the competitors, which in the customers' minds are not Burger King milkshakes, but it's bananas, donuts, bagels, Snickers bars, coffee, and so on. But I hope you can see how, if you understand the job, how to improve the product becomes just obvious.
So at the heart of our feedback loop obviously needs to be the job that we've been hired to do. It's an interesting way of thinking about it, and jobs don't just have to be functional. Like Uber might help you get to A to B, but if you also come out of a cool looking car, air-conned and ready for a meeting, you've also achieved some emotional and social jobs as well, of turning up feeling refreshed, ready to go, confident about your pitch. So try and think about jobs as functional, emotional, or social, but it is absolutely key for us to, did I press that? Absolutely key for us to understand what job we think our product is going to hire for us. Is it going to replace a physical human? Is it, a secretary app that replaces the secretary at the front of the door? Is it someone that replaces someone physical? So very quickly, I've got some post-its actually, which might be better. Just put down what jobs we think we're going to achieve with our products, because we've got a canvas to stick them on, as always. So obviously the job is the most important part of the product. This ensures that the product is useful, that we are replacing something in the world that's been hired already, and we're going to add an improvement to it. It's probably not enough in its own to make sure that people love the product, that people, how often do you tell someone about an app that you like? Not very, but if you love an app, you will go out your way to tell your friends about it, get them online. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So the job helps us be useful, but what helps us create a lovable product, what helps us create something that builds benefits as they use it, that adds extra stuff they didn't even think about. And it's two concepts called pains and gains. So the next thing we'll think about, and there'll be another quick video, but then that's it. That describes what those are in detail, but they will all be around the job you're trying to accomplish. So, and what we're going to end up with today is, so this is a value proposition canvas. Can all see it there in A3? Basically, we're going to build up an understanding of our customer map, of what they're trying to accomplish, what pains they might hit, and what gains they might like to achieve. That's what we're going to end up with today. And in the mentor sessions, we will be probing and asking how are you going to validate some of these concepts. And then this side is how your company matches up to that customer profile. So how your products and services help accomplish the jobs, how your pain relievers remove pain. So you think, when Uber was released, a lot of the pains were I don't have the right money, I don't know which taxi driver I'm going to get, I don't know if he's good, what's he like, I don't know what car I'm getting in, I don't know any of these things. So you can imagine how those pains were very evident on the customer map, and how Uber said, all right, well, what if you could pay in the app? What if there was a GPS tracker that told you where your driver was? What if it had ratings from other people? And these things took away pains of hailing taxis at the time and enabled Uber to become a very lovable product. You've also got gain creators then as well, which are a little bit different to pain relievers, but they are additional things that you get for interacting with that app. So for instance, if YouTube's pain was that you couldn't find video, the gain creator was the communities that it allowed you to find afterwards and build stronger bonds online with other people who loved video. It wasn't something that was initially people might have asked for, but it was a gain creator nonetheless. Think of, Fitbit has a level of data collection that will help people with pain. So it'll say, okay, well, this is where your resting heart rate's at, and this is how many steps you take. But then it has competitions with friends that help enable that feeling and helps build, again, stronger bonds that way. So not only will your app have to remove pains, but to compete, truly compete, it will have to add additional gains that weren't accessible in the current alternatives.
Every day, companies design products and services to improve their customers' lives. But 72% of new product and service innovations fail to deliver on expectations. This means that customers don't care about 7 out of 10 new products introduced to the market. It doesn't have to be this way. Just like you create value for your business with a business model canvas, there is in fact a tool to intentionally visualize, design, and test how you create value for customers. It's called the Value Proposition Canvas. The Value Proposition Canvas is composed of 2 parts, the customer profile and the value map. With the customer profile, you describe the jobs your customers try to get done. Jobs can be functional, like getting from A to B, social, like impressing friends and colleagues, or emotional, like gaining peace of mind. You highlight your customers' pains, which annoy customers while trying to get a job done. Pains are negative outcomes that customers hope to avoid, like dissatisfactions with existing solutions and challenges, frustrations, risks, or obstacles related to performing a job. And you outline customer gains, which describe how customers measure the success of a job well done. Gains are positive outcomes that customers hope to achieve, like concrete results, benefits, and even aspirations. Use the customer profile to visualize, test and track your understanding of the people or companies you intend to create value for. It's a map that becomes clearer the more you learn about your customers. The second part of the canvas is the value map. With it, you list the products and services your value proposition builds on. You describe in which way these products, services and features are pain relievers, how they eliminate, reduce or minimize pains customers care about, making their life easier. And you outline in which way they are gain creators, how they produce, increase or maximize outcomes and benefits that your customers expect, desire or would be surprised by. The value map makes explicit how your products and services relieve pains and create gains. Use it to design, test and iterate your value proposition until you figure out what resonates with customers. You achieve fit by creating a clear connection between what matters to customers and how your products, services and features ease pains and create gains. Great value propositions target essential customer jobs, pains and gains and do so extremely well. Your customer profile may contain countless jobs, pains and gains, but your value map highlights which ones you intend to focus on. But don't forget, an outstanding value proposition can still fail if your business model is flawed. Successful companies embed outstanding value propositions in scalable and profitable business models. Use the value proposition canvas to create products and services that customers want. Get started at strategizer.com.
Obviously, not only is it great to show our understanding of the customer, but actually we use this a lot with our teams to explain explicitly what we're going to build. And what you'll be able to do with this is show not only how well you understand your customer map, which might be difficult today, but we can refine it as we go, and we can make sure that the only things that remain in there are stuff that we can A, validate with real customers, but B, have an impact on changing. And then this becomes a solution that isn't wrapped up in a bias. You can show how it aids validated customer concerns, but it also becomes the blueprint for what we build and how we communicate what we want to build to the team. So what we'll do today is we're really going to focus on fleshing this part out, and then we're going to go through a few more tips on building good products. In the mentor sessions, not only are we going to poke around this, but outside of them, I want you guys to fill this part in, which is how you think your idea is going to affect the customer map. And then this will become the basis of testing our solution early on. Okay? Does that all make sense? So I'm going to give out some of these. You've already got some post-it notes, so you can put them in customer job. We're going to take, I guess, maybe 10-15 minutes whilst we kind of eat as well. Put your hands up, and we just want to flesh out as much as we can on the customer map. And if we don't know what to put down, then we'll talk about how we're going to go flesh that out over the next couple of weeks. Cool? Right, can I just pass those around? So you guys want to share if you've had a business model change?
Yeah.
Yeah?
We were after charging a service provider and then having to come up with problems, gains and jobs for the service providers. It's heavily outweighed by the jobs, the gains and the pains to the user. And the users, so I think the revenue stream would apply more to the user rather than the service
Plus,
provider.
doing market research, we had 47 users complete surveys and only 16 service providers. But we also are the user of the application. We know the problem, we experience it.
It's the general public, so obviously we're going to try and create something for a service provider and then put it to the public, and it might be something that the service providers want but the public don't, and then that's where we're stuck.
Perfect. Well, I mean, that's exactly the point of this canvas, is to understand what value you're first of all generating, and then you can capture it. They're two separate variables, and it's like what you're starting to realize now. And that's really, and it's really helpful that if you are the user on one side, it's almost usually good to start there because you understand the problem, which means you'll understand when the solution's actually working as well, and you'll understand the people, how you communicate to other people. And there's always a chance that if you get enough users, that then the benefits to the service provider become great enough that you get them on board.
They'll just naturally come on board because we'll be like, look, we've got a base of, I don't know. Exactly. And
go
into him and say, there's a demand through our surveys, and it's like, well, prove it, you know, and then he's kind of trying to pull data out, and you're still not convincing him. But if you've got a a base of 10,000 people who are like, we need this, they've got no choice.
Exactly. Or you just go to their competitor and say, look, and one of them will do it. Brilliant.
I have a similar issue, where every previous leader, mentor, has told me that my customers, which would be barbers in my case, should be where I should be pushing my monetary value from. Whereas I keep telling them, I'm like, but there's like 50 barbers in Manchester. There's 100,000 men.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I know apps are meant to be free, but
Yeah.
so with me as well, I'm hoping I'm going to get the exact same. The pains are more with the
Yeah.
people that need haircuts, not with the barbers.
No.
So
Their pay is probably not
I'm
much
hoping
the
to
same,
get
yeah.
something like that where I can prove to my future mentors, my future investors, that charging the people who want haircuts is the most either biggest money or the biggest customer segment, and that the job to be done is actually on that side of life rather than on the barber side. So I'm hoping I get something sorted.
Exactly, and like anything we're doing today, this is in any of these classes, this is about getting our assumptions down and then proving it with traction. So it's about taking these maps out. What Tommy was doing really well before was telling me what words his customers were using and trying to mirror those words on the canvas. What should happen is that the better you understand the customer profile, the easier and easier it becomes to sign people up to your service as you're achieving this fit. What you said before, I've got this many people doing this survey, but only this many people doing it. That is the exact type of data-driven decision making we're looking for in startups though. And you can see how someone who hadn't even done those surveys would have quickly went into building a product for the service providers, only to find out 2 years later.
If it me, she'd have been like, no, we're not going to get that.
Yeah, but what's really key is that it's fine to have those disagreements, and it's important though to use data to decide, and it's the same way we operate inside the building, is that if someone says, all right, I really need this feature, it's going to take 4 months to build, we won't just say yes or no, we'll say, fine, prove it. Go get 15 people of the customer type who agree without you, beating them up that they want that feature, and we'll do it. So it's all about getting into this data-driven way of thinking, especially because what we're trying to do isn't intuitive, it's counterintuitive. So it's really easy to get swayed, follow one piece of advice that takes you down the garden path. It's really important to always remain focused and then go find data to back it up. And the only thing that really backs it up is traction. So it's great enough to keep refining our map, but if it's not resulting in a better and better panel with a more and more focused worldview, then it's not really working, and we need to be honest about that.
Well, I don't know about anyone else, but for me, nearly absolutely everything that we're doing, day on day, I keep coming back to the marshmallow.
The marshmallow.
Honestly, the last 7 days has pissed me off.
Yeah.
Every
Is
single
that because
day.
you can't work out the marshmallow?
No. What I took from it personally was massive failure, because you used all of your 8 minutes, and then at 7:50 you picked up the marshmallow for the first time.
Yeah.
Never again.
Never
will
again.
I ever not spend all that time. So essentially, customer job.
Yeah.
What's the first thing? Right, marshmallow.
Yeah.
Yeah, marshmallow's heavy. Marshmallow needs this. Marshmallow. Right, cool. Do the next one. Right, that's the marshmallow. Yeah.
Exactly.
So for me, that massive failure on day one is now driving me to make sure that I'm always picking up the marshmallow.
Yeah, because even though in your head you think you know how much that marshmallow weighs, there's nothing better than picking the marshmallow up.
Just think that, yeah, man, I learned a lot from that failure. Big time.
Good. And for me, it's always delivering customer value in the early stages, the marshmallow. That then gets replaced by existing alternatives, and finally, can we get someone to pay in one way or another? And that's how I structure them up. But there'll always be different ones, and good, great. So it's useful. Obviously, in your mentor sessions, if you guys could maybe take a picture or something to maybe digitize them, especially the guys with Juan, because obviously he's far away. But then to use this to continuously refine, you won't stop this at the investment and then hand it to the team either. There will be continuous improvements. I don't think you can ever understand the customer too well. And then the other side of it is where it gets really fun when we start talking about which features we can build. But I hope even just after doing this, you show how impossible it would be to define the features without understanding the pains and gains of the customer. Yeah, it's where most founders start, is on the left side of the canvas. So the remainder, there's no more exercises. I don't think there's any more videos. We're just going to go through with some general tips on designing solutions to get the juices flowing so that in your mentor discussion you've got more to talk about. So, slides. Yeah, I'll send it again every week. I'll send out all the slides back out.
Sorry, Luke. Yes. That Strategizer, are these templates on there?
Yeah, so you can go to Strategizer. A lot of them are free. A lot of the videos are free. They're a company set up by a guy called Alex Osterwelde, who created the business model canvas from which our lean canvas was originated from. So someone who's very, very well versed in setting up new companies, new propositions. Definitely worth checking out their website, 100%. So, mentioned this before, this is something that your investors may well ask you. If I've got the perfect customer in a room, what would be the 3 killer questions? My opinion, I think you should be trying to understand their jobs they're trying to accomplish, what pains they feel with the existing alternatives, and if possible, what would they, if you had a magic button that could give them one thing as they're trying to accomplish a job, what would it be? And if you can continuously refine your understandings of this, they are the key elements of the whole company, especially in this phase. So another thing that your mentors, and I will be asking Juan to ask you guys the same thing, these need to keep getting better and better as well. And you really want to be able to show that you're the type of person who's prepared on, if you meet a customer randomly somewhere, that you're prepared to learn something, and that's what that shows. So other things to consider when trying to think and design about a solution probably comes a little bit more into play into the ones with past investment, but worth thinking about. Number 1 is look for the 90-10 rule or the 80-20 rule or whatever anyone calls it. Generally, what is the 10% of the effort that will deliver 90% of the value? Now, I didn't used to really believe that was always the case, but the guy who invented Gmail, Paul Buchheit, and one of the top investors in America, says there's almost always a 90-10 rule. 10% of the effort that will deliver 90% of the value. You can see how useful this is in MVPs. It's really, really key to work out what is the minimum we can do to deliver value. I'm going to give you as an example. Skyscanner was bought for £1.4 billion in 2016, maybe, a couple of years ago. Huge company. Incredibly valuable algorithms that can check all flights all across the world, all at once, and put you at the hands of your own travel agent, right? You can go through. Now, if you wanted to compete with Skyscanner, the traditional way was we want to build a better algorithm. It's only going to cost 20 million quid to build, and then we're going to be right there ready to take out Skyscanner. But one guy called Jack has 750,000 people on an email list, because what he understands is that the job to be done is to go find interesting places to fly for quite a low amount of money. So he has an email list. He will manually find the best flights from the UK and send them to you. He has a premium subscription where if you pay £10 a month, he gives you the very best flights. And for me, it's the perfect example of someone who's taken 10% of the effort of what Skyscanner have done, they probably uses Skyscanner, to deliver 90% of the same value. If you think about why people use Skyscanner, it's to find these interesting holidays for low prices. What he's done is he's cut out the algorithm, he's cut out the 1,000-person company up in Scotland, and he on his own is taking a really good stab at creating a startup that can compete by understanding the customer job better and looking for the 90-10 rule. So if he can take on Skyscanner with an email list, then I believe that all of us can find some form of a 10% rule that will deliver 90% of what we need. Now, maybe, I'm looking at John and Rachel, maybe it's a little bit harder because obviously software is something that's very easy to find a 10%, 90% value, but I'm sure there's still tests that we can do that will deliver 90% of what we're looking for with minimum amount of effort. Generally as well, the last 10% of improvements are the hardest and most expensive. So it's really important to get to a point of delivering value very, very quickly so that we can get the money to deliver those last 10%. So obviously founders have a bit of a silver tongue, and it is important to go out and sell yourselves and explain what value you're hoping to deliver. At the same time, if you promise a Ferrari and deliver whatever that...
It's a Mark II Astra, right?
A Mark II Astra?
It's like the Mark I for my first.
Am I offending you guys here? Sorry.
But like my mum had one, and used to always get nicked by people shoving the screwdriver in the...
Oh, really? Yeah. I just typed in crap car into Google, and that's what came up, so... So we see this a lot, and we've had this with our own founders, is that the sales pitch, the videos, they're all really, really tight. And it's because they're really interested in signing the sale, the 12-month contract that's going to get them in revenue, but their priorities weren't in delivering a great product with great documentation and great support. Now, we spoke about earlier how this strategy will only get you so far. It may actually get you, if you really spice up the front of shop things, you might get the customers you need to get investments 1, 2, 3 times. But we're not here to get investments 1, 2, 3 times and just waste a bunch of years. We're here to make a big company that lasts. And to do that, the product needs just as much attention as the sale. So a lot of our focus won't be on continually rebranding, continually creating new logos and making it look as sharp as possible. We might build stuff at the beginning that does show what this is eventually going to do, but what we can't have is just a totally useless product hidden away behind great sales numbers at the beginning. So the main point of this slide is to emphasize that the product really is the key. We can put all the sales force into the world, but if they're just going to stop using the product right after logging up, then it's no good. So it's really important to make sure the product stands the test of time. What many people do is they want kind of what Andy was talking about before, kind of like vanity metrics, that 10,000 people have landed on my website and I'm pretty sure they all like it. Actually, it's much more important to get a smaller group of users to love it. Better than having 10,000 people who have seen it and they think it's all right, they think it's useful, sure. It'd be better to have 10 people who couldn't do without it. They think it takes around the same amount of effort to get a few people to love it as it does to get a lot of people to like it. But what's key is it's much more difficult to go from like to love than it is to go from small people who love it to a lot of people that love it. It's very hard to understand what takes a product from someone liking it to someone loving it, whereas growing a product through the same user type isn't too difficult. So what we're looking for in the early phase is to take that panel, a group of people who understand the problem and want to find a solution, and take them into people who couldn't live without your service, who really love it, really tell people about it, and they would be bummed if it went away. Much better to get, like I say, if you turned up, let's say we've passed investment gate 1, we've got a product, better than 100 people have been on and 10 people have come on twice, it'd be better to say 10 people have been on every week for the last 6 weeks. Because what we're finding there is a pattern of great usage and great habit, and it's much easier then to find 100 people to follow the same pattern. Much more difficult to take 100 people who won't engage with it and try and get them to love it. It's a really difficult task. And actually what too many companies do is they get so many people who like it that it's hard to start again and work out how do we build a foundation that people love it from. So whilst we haven't got lots of people waiting for the service and we've got the advantage of time on our hands, it's important to understand how do we build a product that people love from day one, and then we'll grow it from there.
Okay. You know, last week I mentioned existing alternative to try and get someone to stop doing their existing alternative. If they absolutely love this, they'll drop their existing alternative and use it.
Straight away.
If it's all right, it's harder to get them to drop their existing alternative.
Exactly.
So you're looking for the ones that are willing to drop it, because once they've dropped it and used it, the chances of them then saying to other people, you've got to use this,
Word of mouth, advertising.
they're going to do it. Yeah. If they're not willing to move to yours and
I love the sentence of, oh, you're still doing it that way?
yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah.
Oh, you still use that?
Yeah, I found this.
Oh, I use this.
That happened to me just yesterday actually. Someone said, oh, is it stuff traffic? And said, oh, have you used Waze?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I use Google Maps. I said,
Oh, you still use
what are you using Google Maps for?
Yeah.
Use Waze, you won't get stuck in traffic.
So it's all everything like speed cameras.
It's fantastic.
And if you only liked Waze, you wouldn't mention it.
I love Waze, I'm not getting tattooed.
Exactly. That's what we want. As soon as Rishi's wants to get a tattoo with your product, you
Yeah.
get it. Like,
One of my metrics is I want a phrase to be synonymous with getting your head
And I
there.
believe that Google are thinking about buying it, or might
I think they have
They have
bought it,
bought it.
but I've got so much loyalty to that brand.
Yeah.
You'll go with them.
They'll keep that operating. But think about that. Think about they managed to outmaneuver Google for Google Maps.
And Google have just flexed their muscle.
And you'd be like, why? How have they done that? They've done that because they concentrated on one little area.
Yeah.
They're extremely good at it. Google have gone, well, we've got to worry about all the people we service and the map integration and all that kind of stuff. Then Google have gone, they've done a really cool thing now. Are we going to develop that? No. And that's kind of what everyone here wants, isn't it? They also want to go, are we going to do that? No.
actually less effort for these companies just to buy the competitors, because
Well,
they buy the
in
team who did
Canvas-
it as well.
In the lean canvas, he talks about, you know, your competitors. What are you going to do about it? You're going to do it better than them, or are you going to buy them?
Exactly.
So a few ways for you to start understanding whether or not people are starting to love your product, and the questions that you should always be asking yourselves as you go through. But you know, and this obviously some of these are dependent on you having a product, but are your users using it more than once is obviously the place to start. If someone uses it in front of you, says they love it, but then never log in again, then they lied, basically. So it's really important to look for repeat usage. Are they fanatical about your product? Are they leaving, you know, even if they're commenting on the App Store, telling you all the things they don't like about your app, it's because they're fanatical about it and they want it to get better. We have this with our Dungeons & Dragons team at the moment. They're continuously responding to comments saying, why isn't this in, why isn't this in? And I have to tell them it's a good thing. Like, they're asking you for it because they want to use it. So that shows me quite a fanatical user base. Would they be truly bummed if your company went away? This is a really important one. If you removed your company from the face of the earth, would someone care? Would someone really, really care? And if you can't get one person who would be truly bummed, then you need to go back to the drawing board and work out how to get that one person. That's why it's so important to get a few people to love it now. It proves that we can do it later. One of the ones I think that we've got like this is we've got a financial planning platform where it puts you directly in touch with a real financial planner, and he's called Jamie, he's that nice, and he'll help you plan for your holiday, plan for your wedding, etc. There's users who speak to him very often, come in, refine their plans, and I know if we took it away, they just wouldn't have that financial advice anymore. It's not an option for them, and I really think they'd be really upset if it went away. So regardless of some of his weaker numbers, that's the number to focus on, is how many people would, you know, if we took this away, they'd be asking their employer to bring it back. And if you're a B2B company, so number 4, are your users recommending you to other people without you asking them to do it, which is exactly what Rishi's talking about with Waze. We all do it. If you have to ask them, it's a good way to start when you're trying to grow, but once you stop having to ask, then you're really, really onto something. And if you're a B2B company, do you have paying customers? In the early stage, it's great for us to get free trials with these businesses, but at a certain point for the business, money talks, and if they're paying for it, then they probably enjoy it. Until we can answer these questions with confidence, then we will not move on to company building. So there's no point building a company and scaling up if any of these are no. And these are our focus for the next year, is getting all of these to yeses with specific examples of who and why, so that we know when we hire someone, we know why they love it and what we want to exploit and why we want to push it further, and who would be totally bummed if it went away. So what does success look like when building a great product? Obviously, we're capturing value back from the customer. So they're giving us something, time, they're giving us our reputation by referring us on to other people, they're giving us money, ideally. We replace the existing alternatives. So for the Dungeons & Dragons app, most people play the game with paper, and they get like 15 stacks of paper, they work through it, and they bring it back each week. I've told them, anytime someone reverts back to paper, your product has failed, because it's entirely sustained by people replacing paper with their application. So you need to understand that you have replaced the alternatives. They don't want to go back. They don't want to go back to using Google Maps, or even worse, one of those big fold-out A4 things. You know, that was the alternative when Google Maps came out. That's how bad it was. Like, it was easy for them to replace. You've still got one.
I bought the first Nokia GPS phone solely because it had a map on it. There you go. I hate getting maps.
Exactly, and think of how bad the first Nokia GPS phone was. But it was better than the existing alternatives.
This big.
Yeah. Did you tell other people about it? Huh? Did you tell other people about it?
Probably. Oh, yeah, map.
Yeah.
Well, look at me.
Yeah.
A map on my phone.
So it accomplished everything it needed to for its time, right? Retention is the real key thing, right? Most people focus on growth as new users, but obviously if we've got a leaky bucket, there's no point spending millions of pounds on acquiring new users if we're not confident that a large percentage of them are going to be retained and are going to stay. And it's usually with retention where the value comes. You know, Facebook would be useless if 7 billion people had been on it and then came back off it. So once we can demonstrate retention, then your company's in a really good state, and investors will be very interested because you can show that you can change someone's behavior over time. So it's the key metric for us to check once we have product, is how well are we retaining people. And again, people tell people without you asking. It's really key because it's not only the only sustainable growth mechanism, it's obviously the cheapest. It comes with a recommendation of a friend. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do marketing-wise as a company ever that will outstrip someone's friend telling them to do it. So it's really important to get to that aspect. Obviously, if you're B2B, companies still talk. You know, if you're going for NHS Trust still talk. They'll know. And if it's good enough, they will tell people about it. Once you've got these 4 things, we can grow. We can grow the product, we can grow the company, and we can stop making product our number 1 focus and start making company our number 1 focus. But until that point, we can't. Recap. So to build a great product, it was a bit of a trick session. I said we're doing product. Really, we spoke about customers again the whole time. But that's because understanding the customer is key. Constant product improvement is really, really, really important. Launch fast, not to compete, but to begin learning. So keep the first build simple. Try and think, what value am I trying to understand with this test? And it is a test in the early stage. MVP should be the way to maximize learning. So once we've asked all the questions we can ask in an interview and we think, right, we understand our customers as well as possible to this point, what are our next level assumptions? Like, we can't learn this now until we've got people using it. So it should be the way to maximize that. And if you've still got questions that you can learn through interviews, then you should continue to maximize those learning opportunities to best know what the MVP should be in its first state. Get them to pay if you can. It does show commitment, and actually, if you can get anyone to pay at this phase, not only does it show commitment to the overall solution, they will be much more available when you need them because they've got an investment in this now. Not always possible, but you know, if you're feeling ballsy, go for it. Understanding a customer's jobs to be done is key to building a useful product. I know we've all got jobs to be done today, and I know we all think they're probably fairly spot on, but I do push you guys, really go ask the customers again. Try and understand the language they use, because a job that you might think super important for them might be way down the radar, and actually something that you didn't pick up is really important to them. And it's better to get a small group of people, i.e. your panel, to love the product, to not want it to go away, than it is to have large amounts of ambivalence. And it's not until we can show that the panel love it that we really need to expand it. Because if we can't even get the 10 people or 10 companies or whoever who were willing to work with you now to love it, then there's very little chance of getting the mass market to love it. So these are kind of the challenges ahead of us of building a product. It does start today, even when we're pre-product build. It starts with our interview questions. It starts by mapping out our customers better. It starts by using their language and understanding their jobs to be done. And hopefully, we'll be sitting here in a few months, delivering a really well-refined canvas to the team. And once we build stuff, it's easily testable, it's useful, and we know exactly which parts we're testing against which parts of the customer map. And remember, if you haven't made a great product, nothing else will save you. Nothing. Cool, that's it for the product session. All good.